All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to No Final Bell. As you can see, it's just me today. Marty ended up having to work, and if we want to try to get these episodes out on time, we have to start making sure that if it's just me or if it's both of us together, that we're gonna get these episodes out. So I'm gonna try to get through this as best as I can with just the what I have itself. Is just going to be AEW Dynamite and Collision. Um, so Orange Cassidy to start off the show um, comes out to start the show while the fans chant "freshly squeezed," and then they chant "Thank you, Orange." While Orange thanks the fans, AEW has told him to stay home while he has been hurt. 32 title defenses later, that man has put his body on the line. Did lose to Jon Moxley at All Out for the International Championship, and well, he isn't going to stay home. He's going to be fighting regardless if he has a championship or not. He will be there every week. Thoughts? Um, I would love for him to be able to go after, like, say, like the world championship, or really be that fighting guy that's going to be showing up every single week competing, even if he is hurt. I'm just grateful that we have seen a different side of Orange Cassidy, a very aggressive, hard fighting, never give up kind of attitude out of Orange Cassidy, and it's something we needed because a lot of people are like, well, he's too much of a comedic person. But to be truthfully honest with you, yeah, we have seen it a lot from Orange Cassidy, but we also have seen a very competitive, fighting Orange Cassidy. So I really do think that if he can get an opportunity to show himself, to really improve, to go out there and possibly fight for the world championship. Right now, there's a lot of guys gunning for it. It does suck that Orange Cassidy was not involved in that tournament, but hopefully he can be one that could maybe face off against MJF or whoever will be the world champion, and when he does get an opportunity. But I just do not want to see him go after the TNT championship. Of course, I'll be talking about that a little bit later in the show, but anything but the TNT championship. I would like to see Orange Cassidy possibly either team up with the best friends to go after the World Trios Tag Team Championships. Of course, the Acclaim did throw out the challenge. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But to be truthfully honest with you, the sky's got to be the limit for Orange Cassidy. You've been probably the best international champion in the title's history itself. So I really would like for him to get an opportunity to really showcase who he can be as a wrestler. I think the sky's the limit. I think there's good things coming from Orange Cassidy. And if Tony Khan can really book him in the right direction, I think that you really got to give him that opportunity to show who he can be as a singles competitor. Moving on, out comes Jon Moxley while Orange Cassidy stays on the ramp. So clearly Orange Cassidy is still not happy that Jon Moxley has beaten him for the International Championship. I'm pretty sure that eventually they will probably have a rematch, but for right now, it's not going to be the case. And then as he looks on, and Jon Moxley does face off against AR Fox, which was a pretty good back and forth contest. AR Fox is very underrated as a wrestler. He can showcase against anybody itself, a very high flying, competitive nature, but couldn't get the job done on Dynamite as Jon Moxley has retained. Jon Moxley was a busy man this last week of AEW, because we'll talk about him in his title defense on Collision later on. But apparently he also wrestled on Rampage itself. I am not talking about Rampage at all. I do apologize for anybody that does watch it. I don't really follow it too much. It's really just mostly Dynamite and Collision. Maybe I will talk about Rampage when it comes to Grand Slam, because usually they will stack the card for Rampage as well as Dynamite. But going forward, we meet up. Show us, it pans it backstage. Christian Cage meets up with Nick Wayne in the back and says he watched his father's matches, and wow, he says he was way worse than he thought. And it says if Nick wants a true mentor, he should look into a champion. And then he wants him to say hi to his mom for him. Thoughts? It's a very intriguing story of what is going on with Nick Wayne, AR Fox, Darby Allin, and Christian Cage. To be truthfully honest with you, we'll talk about it later, but right now we all see that Nick Wayne and AR does not trust AR Fox after what has happened, because AR Fox was teamed up with Swerve Strickland, but AR Fox did get the loss, and then Swerve kind of put him on the wayside, beat him down. Then AR Fox is teamed up with Darby. Darby forgave him easily because of what he has done for him in the past. But Nick Wayne cannot trust him. And to be truthfully honest, I don't blame Nick Wayne for not trusting AR Fox after he went to, his own home, bloodied him up pretty damn good, beat him up, broke his father's, the picture of him and his father together and stuff like that. I don't want to trust AR Fox either, but it does seem like AR Fox has had a change of heart. But to be truthfully honest with you, if I'm Nick Wayne, I wouldn't trust Christian Cage either, because, he's going around claiming he's the TNT champion, but people, you need to realize that Luchasaurus is actually the TNT champion. Christian Cage, yes, he may have helped Luchasaurus be the TNT champion, but if you see it, unfortunately, it's Christian Cage. Christian Cage Christian Cage is not the champion. It's Luchasaurus. Luchasaurus is a rightful TNT champion, but if I'm Nick Wayne, I wouldn't trust it. Of course, I'm liking how the story is playing out between Darby Allin, AR Fox, and stuff like that. But, I'm very curious if Nick Wayne is going to turn on Darby and AR Fox and join up with Christian Cage, because it seems like something is planting where Nick Wayne is ready to turn heel and turn his back on Darby and AR Fox. Maybe turn up with Christian Cage. Of course, we'll have to keep on watching to see what happens. But as of right now, it looks very interesting to see that, Nick Wayne's planting the seeds. He doesn't trust AR Fox. Could he turn his back on Darby Allin as well? We'll have to see. Next match, we get Chris Statlander and Emi Sakura for the TBS Championship. Of course, we'll talk about Chris Statlander putting the title on the line later on Collision 2. She's going to be a fighting champion just like Orange Cassidy was. And honestly, that's not a bad thing. It's not bad for that. Emi Sakura really looked like she was putting the work on Chris Statlander early in this match. She has 20 plus years, has wrestled over 2,200 matches in her career. And Chris Statlander, looked pretty rocked in this match. It took her a while to be able to really get back in the match, but man, Emi Sakura was really putting in the work on Chris Statlander, and I thought maybe she could have been the one to beat Chris Statlander, but no, Chris Statlander ends up beating Emi Sakura to retain the TBS Championship. Chris Statlander, I guess it hasn't been the most impressive title reign so far. I would like for her to really face off against opponents that aren't exactly just there to put over other talent itself. Of course, we'll talk about what happens, later on. But Chris Statlander has been having a decent title run so far. I don't think it's been impressive. I think Jake Cargill's was probably more impressive than Chris Statlander's as of yet. But also but when Jade Cargill was the TBS champion, she was facing off against a lot of, this so-called jobber talent, I guess, or enhancement talent to make her, undefeated streak just that much better. So, Chris Statlander, ever since coming back from injury, has been undefeated. So, we'll see how long it goes for Chris Statlander itself. So, Lay Sex Gods do come back as a tag team and face off against former ROH World Tag Team Champions Aussie Open, and do beat them. And then Sammy doesn't want his hand raised by Chris Jericho, and they start pushing each other and had to be separated as Sammy Guevara leaves the ring and walks into the crowd. What does this mean moving forward? Well, it means that they're going to have a Magic Grand Slam, and honestly, I think that's all right. Sammy Guevara, I thought he always had Chris Jericho's back, but it does not seem like it. It was just a one-time thing for the late Sex Gods to be back. So honestly, I think that Sammy Guevara needs to get this win over Chris Jericho at Grand Slam just to move him forward. I mean, Sammy Guevara, his goal is to win a singles title in his career, and honestly, I would like to see him do it. Even if it's like the international championship, it doesn't absolutely have to be the world championship. He's been I think a 3-time TNT champion. I would like for him to go after either the world championship or an international championship. I think the international championship would be a good belt or good championship for Sammy Guevara to have. But honestly, I would like for him to probably get another chance at the world championship itself. But that man that stands in his way is Chris Jericho, and I would like for Sammy Guevara to get the win, to get the victory over Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho has done enough in his career where him losing this match is not going to really derail him too much. Former AEW world champion, former ROH world champion, as an 8-time world champion in general. I think that Sammy needs this win a lot more than Chris Jericho needs this win. So I'm really hoping that's what's going to be the case here. So, of course, as I'm recording on Thursday and uploading on Thursday, this has already happened where there was a celebration for Takeshita, and will reveal his next target. Thoughts? Honestly, it's very intriguing to know who will be his next opponent. I haven't really seen anything about who his next opponent will be, but I'm hoping it's going to be, at Wrestle Dream. Of course, we'll talk about a few other matches that will happen at Wrestle Dream. One of them being involved with Bryan Danielson. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But Takeshita, it could be anybody, honestly. I haven't even thought who it could be. Getting 2 wins in a row against Kenny Omega is very impressive. So the sky's the limit for Takeshita. I hope that he can be a future world champion, because even when he was a babyface, I thought, man, he has the potential to be a champion. And here, now that he's a heel, he's been looking good. Of course, Don Callis has aligned himself with Takeshita. But honestly, I really do think that Takeshita could be a future champion, maybe a future world champion itself, beating Kenny Omega not once but twice, tag team and also singles. Looks very impressive for him going forward. So sky's the limit for Takeshita. Honestly, I think that it would be nice to see him being a champion in the future. I really hope that that's the way that they're going to go, because I'm a fan of Takeshita. I think his work is very underrated. I don't think he gets enough praise for what he does in the ring itself. So honestly, I think that sky is very much the limit. The sky's the limit for him itself. So we go on forward. MJF comes out and next to speak and says the devil has arrived, and says he has lived in Indy during his Indy run. Funny. And asks who's his daddy, and the fans chant MJF. Says they successfully defended the ROH tag team titles, and TK says to him he will have to wrestle September 20th. Sorry, everyone. I have to pause this for... Alright, sorry, everybody. I had to pause for a brief sec as I had to respond to a text. But I was off where TK was saying to him that he will have to wrestle September 20th at Grand Slam. And he says that's the devil's den in his home state. Says he is coming back home, and says whoever wins the tournament, they aren't on the level of the devil, and that there is a certain person that needs to be taught a lesson. And then out comes Samoa Joe. Wanted the front row seat to see what needed to be said, and wants to know what seems to be the problem, kid. And the crowd chants, Joe's gonna kill you. Why you ran out here so fast and confused his music for an ice cream truck. Samoa Joe really wants to know the problem, and MJF says he's a creative guy himself. Look, everyone, it's Pillsbury Joe Boy. Says he has a tiny dick, and Joe says the rabbi had a lot to work with. MJF says Say kid one more time, there will be a problem. MJF says that's how you want him to act. And Joe says the crowd sound a lot like their mothers after saying fuck you, Joe. MJF asks who's ready for story time with MJF and says he had a tryout in Brooklyn and says he was pulled aside from William Regal and says he was blown off by him and the chants chanted he effed up and says he sent him back to NXT and says he will send him back to NXT where he belongs. And says if Joe plays his hands right, he will be next. Brings up the night he was a security guard and walked him down the ring, and as someone he looked up to, and what he did. And what did he do? He took a 19-year-old kid and pushed him and laughed. MJF knows how scumbags think because he's the crowd scumbag, while the fans chant he's our scumbag. He did it because he was a kid, and a kid is grown up, and he is a generational talent, and is the world champion, and main evented the biggest event. It says he's MJF. MJF says to Joe, get out of his way or he will kill him. And do you want to know why? Because his name is Maxwell Jacob Freeman, and I'm better than you, and you know it. Joe didn't think of MJF as a kid back in the day and thought he was a little bitch. And then MJF smacks Joe, and Joe says he will go through that tournament and earn his shot, and says until then, have a nice day, and actually beats down MJF and holds up the title, and then MJF beats Joe down, and then Joe catches MJF into his Uranagi, and then Adam Cole comes down to save MJF, and then next time Samoa Joe will leave it attached, but no promises, thoughts. It'd be interesting to see what happens. I mean, of course, this match did happen between Roderick Strong and Samoa Joe, and we'll talk about, the match, but I think it'll be Samoa Joe that probably will face off against MJF at Grand Slam. Of course, I'll watch and give my input on it, but it looks pretty good for that match. And as far as who MJF could go up against at Wrestle Dream, I would think that probably Roderick Strong would make the most sense to go up against for it, but who knows? We'll have to see. Then the Kingdom and Roderick Strong comes out, and Strong can't wait to beat his ass for the title as his neck looks fine. And then Roderick Strong and Trent Beretta face off, and then Roderick Strong beats Trent Beretta with the end of Heartache. Tony Storm will be in a four-way match where the winner gets a match at Grand Slam. Could she be the one that wins? I think so. It would make the most sense for Tony Storm to face off against Saraya at Grand Slam for the Women's World Championship. I mean, Tony Storm has been very delusional and crazy and all over the place since, losing, and hasn't been the same person. But I really do think that she's the one that's going to win a fatal four-way match and face off against Saraya, and possibly, I don't want to say maybe win a title back, but very possible that she could give Saraya a run for her money and be able to possibly win the championship in New York City, Queens, New York. So we'll see. Then out comes Adam Hangman Page after his victory from All Out and says he used to be a high school teacher and says that teachers are underpaid and underappreciated. And out comes Swerve Strickland when Hangman Page wanted to talk about his future, and then Swerve gets some perspective after being in the coffin. And the next one on his mind is Hangman Page. It says he was on a 0 hour instead of the main card for All Out for a champion, instead of going after a championship. Source says he was a pinnacle for the company and says Hangman Page has lost his confidence and hasn't really done anything special in a year. Says he rode Beck's seat behind the Elite and says every opportunity was handed to him on a silver platter, and says he got the opportunities he had. If he had the opportunities that Hangman Adam Page had, he would be the first Black World Champion in AEW, and wants Hangman Page to show him that confidence again and show what cowboy shit is all about. And Swerve says he would walk Hangman Page like a dog, and he is after that spot that he doesn't want. Hangman says he is done with that shit right now. Swerve says it's sad his wife and son has to see him walk away from moral responsibilities. And the Hangman gets back in the ring and says, I don't know who told you it was a good idea to come out here. And he gets blindsided by Brian Cage while he hits Page with a powerbomb and drill claw. What does this mean? Well, it is going to be setting up a match between Brian Cage and Adam Hangman Page. But we are going to see Swerve Strickland and Adam Hangman Page at Wrestle Dream in Seattle. It has been made official. And honestly, I think it's good. I would like to see, I think either one of these men would benefit from a victory, but if there's anybody that probably needs it more, it's Adam Hangman Page. I think the future can be bright for him because he really, I guess Swerve is kind of right. He hasn't really done much in like a while now, and he kind of has rode a coattails of the Elite for a little bit there. But I think that it's time for Adam Hangman Page to do something on his own, but it wouldn't shock me if Swerve gets a win here too, because, like I said, either man could benefit from a victory here, and it'll just have to wait and see who it could be. But hopefully it's good things for Adam Hangman Page. But if it's not, then I guess you would have to really reevaluate his career and see what he wants to do going forward. Does he ride the coattails of the Elite still, or does he go off on his own and tries to figure out what he wants to do as a singles guy yet again? So we'll have to see. During the main event, Darby wants Nick Wayne to hit him harder, and now comes Christian Cage to watch the match from the commentary table, and then Darby beats Nick Wayne. So we get on to the start of Collision. Jon Moxley and Action Andretti. Action Andretti actually put in a really good match against Jon Moxley. This was very back and forth. Great contest. Action Andretti is very underrated. I mean, I don't think a lot of people know just how good Action Andretti is. I mean, yeah, his record doesn't showcase how good he is, but this is also a man that in his very first match beat Chris Jericho and earned himself a contract. Chris Jericho saw something in Action Andretti, and I can see why. This man, puts in some great work. I mean, he is teamed up with Darius Martin right now because Dante is hurt. It just sucks because I would like for a Top Flight to really, go after the World Tag Team titles, either at ROH or in AEW. But every time they try to, to go after something, one of them get hurt. So I would like for them to both stay healthy and probably, Top Flight be Top Flight yet again and actually go after the, some kind of World Tag Team titles, whether it be in ROH, whether it be in AEW, whether it be somewhere, because I think that they are very well deserving of it. The momentum train was riding very high on them, and I hope that they can still go after tag team gold even after Dante Martin comes back from injury. But all in all, Jon Moxley does retain, but man, this man has been busy this week. I'm grateful that he's been a fighting champion, has been putting the international championship on the line. I'm grateful for it. I just wish that could be the same case for the TNT championship, because it just seems like TK has lost all hope in that championship, and that international championship has kind of taken over that TNT championship and the fighting championship. We talked about Kris Statlander before, but she puts the title on the line against Robin Renegade and beats her, and then gets beaten down by the Renegade Twins after the match, and then out comes a returning Jade Cargill. We have not seen her in a while since losing the TBS championship and being 60-1. Is back to help out Kris Statlander, and then unfortunately, nope, that didn't last very long, because Jade Cargill gives Kris Statlander Jaded and holds up the TBS championship. Will they face off at Grand Slam? No, they will not face off against Grand Slam. Apparently, they are going to face off at Rampage instead, which is kind of a bummer. I really think that you should have left this match for Grand Slam. It would have been bigger to have instead of at Rampage, but it is what it is. I think at this point, Jade Cargill is just finishing up her AEW contract. Reports of her possibly leaving AEW and going to WWE, but I don't not think that's going to happen, as she likes being in AEW. She likes TK because TK treats people as not just wrestlers. He treats them as human beings, and he treats them very with respect. So I hope that she will retain, stay in AEW, and hopefully go after the AEW Women's World Championship. It would be cool. Ruby Soho and Saraya say they have smacked the sense back into Toni Storm, and Saraya claims she will remain the champion after Grand Slam. Thoughts? I think that could be the case. I hope that Toni Storm does win face off against Saraya. I would like for Ruby Soho and Saraya to really put some sense back into Toni Storm, make her back into, where she was probably with the Outcasts or even before the Outcasts. Put some sense back into her, but I think that Saraya can retain the championship. I mean, she's got to do something. Don't make this dull as her being the champion. Hopefully that she does retain, but who knows? These two men have some history. Eddie Kingston and Claudio Castagnoli will put both of their titles on the line at Grand Slam. Who could win? I gotta say, it's gotta be Eddie Kingston's time. There's one reason why Claudio is putting the ROH World Championship on the line in New York, and Eddie Kingston needs to get his time in front of his hometown crowd of Queens, New York. He needs to go out there and get this victory. He needs to beat Claudio Castagnoli. He's got to put the past behind him and look into the future, and the future is now for Eddie Kingston, and I think it's time for him to be a world champion. It does suck it's ROH, but it's time for Eddie Kingston to get his moment, to shine, get to be a world champion for the first time in his whole entire career. It is time for Eddie Kingston to be IWGP Strong Openweight Champion and also ROH World Heavyweight Champion. It is time for Eddie Kingston to finally be able to pin Claudio Castagnoli and get that handshake that they didn't get 15 years prior. I think it's time for Eddie Kingston and Claudio Castagnoli to bury the hatchet, put the past behind them, go their separate ways, and it's time. The sky's the limit. Because if Eddie Kingston cannot beat Claudio Castagnoli, I don't think he can be able to put the damn past behind him. So TK and AEW, do the right thing, make Eddie Kingston the world champion here, because I can't see why you can't. You really do got to give Eddie Kingston the opportunity, and I think it's going to happen at Grand Slam. What better way? So Bullet Club Gold faces off against Gravity, Aerostar, and Dios del Inframundo. It was supposed to be a 8-on-8 match, but fortunately Jay White was not able to make it for the event, so it ended up being a trios match instead. And ultimately, Bullet Club Gold does beat Gravity, Aerostar, and Dios del Inframundo as Andrade El Idolo watches on. So I wonder if, it doesn't look like Andrade El Idolo is very happy with Bullet Club Gold. I'm hoping that maybe he can create another type faction to go up against Bullet Club Gold, because it looked like, I was wondering, we haven't seen much of Andrade El Idolo. I know he was busy with the House of Black, but all of a sudden you just didn't see him involved with the House of Black anymore, and now he's all of a sudden watching this match and looked like he was mad and very intrigued of watching it. So I'm very curious to know what is going to go on with this. I'm hoping they keep it going with that. So CJ Perry, we saw her make her return in All In London, England. Actually, no, All Out. She returned in All Out between Miro and Powerhouse Hobbs, which was a really good match. If you haven't, go ahead and watch that. Please order All Out. I think it ended up being a pretty good pay-per-view. Not better than All In, but it was a really good pay-per-view. We did see Miro's wife, CJ Perry, come back, and apparently she wants to be a manager again. Will she be able to help Miro get the whole gold again? I think so. I think that eventually, her and Miro are going to team back up, and she's going to manage Miro. And I think that the Promised Land will be there for Miro to be able to win a championship in AEW once again. Whether that's a world championship, whether that's an international championship, whether it's, fortunately, the TNT championship again. I think in some way Miro is going to win gold. And I think that would be good for him going forward, because, yeah, he was able to get the victory against Powerhouse Hobbs at all out. So I think the sky's the limit for Miro going forward. And who better than giving him, his own hot and flexible wife? um, the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass will take their world tour to Grand Slam. Who could they face? Personally, I would like to see them face off against the Black Bull Comic Club, but something tells me it's going to be somebody else. I guess we'll have to find out, but I think the Black Bull Comic Club makes the most sense here for All Out, or for Grand Slam, but I guess we'll find out. There's not much that happened with this one. Ray Phoenix ends up being on Heligo. FTR wants to know who's next to step up, and we'll have a tournament for a young tag team to step up to face FTR. Thoughts? Well, that first young tag team is the Iron Savages. Later on Saturday night on Collision, FTR is going to retain. I can't see them losing to Iron Savages, but I would like to see more fresh faces facing off for the World Tag Team titles. I think it keeps it more fresh for getting these tag teams that don't really get the opportunity to go after the tag team gold to get a opportunity. So I'm all in game for it. Maybe we could see a new tag team form, the face off against FTR, because they really have pretty much been all the top tag teams there has to be. So who knows? Roderick Strong faces off against Darby Allin, and Darby Allin just got thrown around like a rag doll. Even before this match, got thrown around by Luchasaurus. Christian Cage says as long as he is in AEW, he will not, he will make it that Darby Allin never wins a championship ever again, whether it's a world championship or the TNT championship. As long as Christian Cage is there, he will make it that Darby Allin never wins another championship, which is, I think, is crazy. But yes, Roderick Strong, after everything, beats Darby Allin, and then AR Fox tries to see how Darby Allin is doing, and then Nick Wayne pushes him away as AR Fox are on their side. Again, I really do think that Nick Wayne in some way is going to turn heel and beat up, both of them, and maybe align with Christian Cage, because it just doesn't. Because Christian Cage just seems to be involved with Darby Allin and AR Fox in some way, shape, or form. So I want to see if Nick Wayne is going to end up saying, screw you guys, I'm going to join up with, a father figure in Christian Cage. So I really want to know what's going to happen with that, per se, but it'd be intriguing to see what happens. Keith Lee wants to do things solo. Thoughts? I'm not opposed to it. I mean, I think it's time for him to have a nice, good solos run. I think that he can be a future solo champion too, but who knows? I think the sky's the limit for Keith Lee too. As a former World Tag Team Champion with Swerve Strickland, so hopefully he can have something going for him as a singles guy. Bryan Danielson says he had a chat with his daughter. When she turns 7, he will finish his career. Time is running out on his career as she is currently 6. Then that means this is going to be his last year of his career. He will not go down lightly until that happens. It will kick everyone's head in, and this will be the most epic year of his career. Calling out his shots and calling out Zack Sabre Jr. for Wrestle Dream in Seattle October 1st. It is made official that he will face off in a dream match at Wrestle Dream in Seattle, Washington. And then Ricky Starks comes down and says he had to get attention just to get a match, and he's graduated from being hungry to being greedy, and will just keep taking. Bryan Danielson saw what was in Ricky Starks' heart, and he approves. Says if you want to be with us, you got to bleed with us. And then gets beaten down by Big Bill, and then Ricky Starks pulls him back and beats Bryan Danielson down, and then out comes Jon Moxley to choke out Big Bill, but then gets a big boot, and Ricky Starks is choking Bryan with a shirt. What does this mean? I really think it's going to mean a tag team match heading into Grand Slam. I think it's going to be Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley facing off against Big Bill and Ricky Starks. And honestly, I think it's going to be a good match, and it's going to, set up maybe something between Big Bill, who was going to face off against Jon Moxley later on for the International Championship. And I think it's going to set up a match at Grand Slam, but we'll definitely happen to see. Samoa Joe faces off against Penta El Zero Miedo and beats him. And then, of course, we know that Jon Moxley will face Big Bill later tonight for the International Championship. Thoughts? I think that Jon Moxley is going to beat Big Bill. I can't see Big Bill getting the win here. Jon Moxley is going to, keep the momentum running high as an international champion. So, yeah, this is going to conclude this episode of No Final Bell. A little bit shorter than we usually do, but that's what happens when it's just me alone. Make sure to follow us on social media at Tinkle Sports. Of course, our channel right here is Tinkle Sports Entertainment. We don't just have this show. We have Sunday Morning Tinkle every Sunday at 9 a.m. We have this show usually every Wednesday at 5. And we have Out of Turn 4 every Tuesday at 5 until it goes on hiatus, which I think might be soon. I'm not 100% sure, but please make sure to watch all of our content, like, comment, subscribe, and share with everybody. We want to, hear your support. We want to hear back from everybody. We want, to keep this momentum riding high. And it looks like the sky is the limit heading into Grand Slam, which, again, it's kind of a dream of mine. I think it's a dream of Marty's too, to go to Arthur Ashe Stadium. Maybe next year. Can't go this year. It's just too soon. September 20th. Unfortunately, we both have to work, but maybe next year, if they announce it early enough, I wouldn't mind going for it. But as always, we'll catch you in the next video. Goodbye, everyone.